I was saying in my Facebook live stream, um, the axis of these studs and the drilled hole obviously is not perfectly perpendicular to this face that it sticks out of. Um, so what's happening is the holes on the caliper, they're actually rubbing on the inside edges because these studs are angled kind of toward each other. So they rub on the very tip here, and then once you get it past there, they actually feel and fit perfectly. Um, so what's likely happening is kind of as I've drawn here, the stud is in the correct position roughly, uh, but within the positional tolerance, there's also angularity that's built in, and that is um, whether or not my initial spec was tight enough or they are actually violating my spec, which I haven't validated with a proper inspection yet. But something's wrong, obviously. And there's another way that I can handle this um, that is a little clearer as far as what my intent is for the part, and anything that can help clarify for the machinist, who I don't normally speak to, is highly desired. So there's no shortage of things you can put on a drawing to be more clear about something. Um, the machinist would always take more than less and leave less to interpretation. So I just wanted to go over the from the engineering side of this channel, the GD&T that I'm talking about here is, the initial call out for true position was something like this, which creates this imaginary cylinder of this diameter in the hole. So you're physically measuring the hole, and the cylinder that is controlling the axis is in the hole. What that means is any deviation from perfect center with a stud like this that sticks out really far is going to magnify the deviation the further out you go from the hole. And one way you can control that is you can obviously just go really tight on the true position in the hole, but you can also use what is called a projected tolerance, projected positional tolerance. And what that does is it just shifts where you're measuring. So same hole, but you need to extrapolate kind of that cylinder some distance, which I'm saying is 30 millimeters, away from the surface here. So they actually have to measure here, and one way to do that is put like a gauge pin in the hole that's very, very tight fit, and then measure the position of the gauge pin at whatever that height is that you want. So what that does is it provides a little bit more clarity about what's important. I want to make sure that when I'm sliding this caliper over these long studs that I don't have an installation issue like I'm having, where just the tip of the stud is pinching the caliper and actually making me kind of force it on, where once it's past that point, it fits really well. So I just want, this is one way to add that clarity that this stud needs to be, the perpendicularity to that face needs to be controlled. And there's other ways to do it, but this is one way, and it's a pretty good way. The only caveat here, which this gets into the nuance, is it's actually a threaded hole, not an actual smooth bore hole, which makes measuring it a little difficult or different. And that's why I actually specify here that using a gauge pin on the minor diameter, because typically when you're doing true position of a thread, you actually have to have a tool that can locate on the pitch diameter, which is just a pain in the butt. Special tool. A lot of places probably don't even have it, but every machine shop has gauge bins. So just one way to address the issue. It all adds up. That's where you got to do your tolerance stack ups and figure everything out in the detail for something that should be really easy. And obviously, the more clearance you build into it, the less precise you need to be, and maybe you can just completely ignore a lot of this stuff. But the through holes and the stud diameter, they're actually pretty close to each other. There's not a lot of space. So I actually do need to be precise, and I don't have their caliper hole tolerance, size tolerance, or position tolerance. So I have to make assumptions there on what they're doing in mass production to control their hole locations and size. Yeah, so that's true position and projected true position.